Xenoblade Chronicles is a renowned series, and one of the aspects that is most beloved for Xenoblade is its endings, comprising a vast emotional range, tying up narrative themes that are complex yet subtle, all the while incorporating incredible music that is able to add and further the narrative all of its own. The stories of Xenoblade are so beloved largely because of their endings. But there's one outcast, one outlier, if you will, for Xenoblade, whose ending is controversial to say the least and hated to say the worst. But in my opinion, it has the potential to be one of the best. Let's talk about Xenoblade X. And obviously full spoilers here for Xenoblade X, I mean, come on. But let's talk about the ending of Xenoblade X. Why is it controversial? Let's just rip it. It's controversial because it's a cliffhanger. That is the reason. It does a lot of setup for another game and another story that just never came. We got Xenoblade 2, that game came out to a rousing success, then we had Torna, then Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition, then 3, and now Future Redeem. And we have not gotten a follow-up to Xenoblade X. And the only thing X related that we've gotten so far is a non-canonical DLC character. I think she's DLC, Elma for Xenoblade 2 as a blade. She's not canonical though. The story of X is not continued. So the story of X ends off with a bunch of reveals setting up a grander narrative to unfold that just never comes. It's like if the only Lord of the Rings movie that existed was Fellowship. Where, yes, that movie is great by itself, but where's the rest of it? For the real gaming boomers out there, you may remember the controversy surrounding Halo 2's ending. It was very abrupt and didn't feel that it was a very abrupt ending that didn't really satisfy people at the time. Because the ending of Halo 2 was meant to transition into Halo 3, and Halo 3 had just not come out yet. But when it did, a lot of those criticisms for Halo 2's ending kind of faded away, because you now had the follow-up, which was Halo 3. Halo 2 effectively flowed itself directly into Third's narrative, or 3's narrative. But without Halo 3, the ending of Halo 2 would look a lot worse and sour within the minds of the player, because it wasn't satisfactory. You didn't walk away from it with a sense of finality or conclusion like you did with Combat Evolved. That's kind of the case here for Xenoblade X, where we find out Elma is the reason X happened to begin with. She was the reason humanity was able to get off of Earth to begin with, was the reason humanity advanced technologically speaking centuries faster than it should have. Why the Mimeosome project came into being. It was because of Elma and her technological knowledge that she was able to bestow upon humanity. There's so much story left to dig in there. But then we find out, hey, they're hinting at other life holds out there, other ships that may have made it off of Earth that we could find and come into contact with. This could have been a big space opera-esque event where we're going to different worlds trying to find the last vestiges of hope for humanity's future and build something new here. But we also learn, hey, we shouldn't be alive right now because the life hold was destroyed or turned off due to damage when it first crash landed onto Mira, but it's something about the planet Mira that kept us alive, even as Mimeosomes. Why is that? That is a perfect narrative to transition into Xenoblade X2. And that's one of the reasons why so many people are looking forward to Xenoblade X2, all 12 of us that have a Wii U. We also see Lao washed up on a beach, alive, and then we see the Black Knight walk up to him, who's a very mysterious character we don't see or hear about all that much. There's clearly something more that was supposed to be here, but it just never came. Xenoblade found success in its other titles and in the other story that I love dearly, don't get me wrong, but it also came at the sacrifice of Xenoblade X, at least in the present. And while yes, when you look at it this way, with the information we have available to us, and no promise of a Xenoblade X2, X's ending leaves a lot to be desired, because there's no sense of finality or closure. You don't walk away from it feeling like you've accomplished an entire journey. You feel like you just began, but got blue-balled. That's pretty dang on point right there. It's a blue ball ending. It teases so much in terms of themes and story and character, but they just don't do anything with it. I'm hopeful that in the future they'll address it at some point. I'm hopeful, but there's no promise. Xenoblade X didn't sell the best. It didn't help that it was on the freaking Wii U of all things, but still. Like, think about it. If you're Nintendo and you're being pitched these two games, which are you gonna go for? Xenoblade 4 is a potential follow-up to a series that is gaining a lot of traction now, with memorable characters that are in the public eye, that people know and recognize now, at least within Nintendo's sphere of influence. Or a follow-up to an old Wii U game that not that many people played. It's one of the reasons why I don't think we'll get a Xenoblade X 2 before we get a Xenoblade X Definitive Edition. And I think if we're going to get that, it will be on the next console, where they can show off properly the scale and beauty of Mira. Lean onto those visuals, lean onto the music, the gameplay, have a new Nintendo console, maybe be able to put out 1080p 60 FPS for the game. And for a Xenoblade game, that would be immense by itself. Upscale the visuals just a little bit as well. Maybe change or augment the lighting system a little bit. You don't need to change wholesale everything. I actually like the art style and the character design of Xenoblade X on the whole. And just rip it. Maybe add a few more story scenes here and there if y'all want, but X is a phenomenal game. It's different from the other Xenoblade games, but I firmly believe that if the game received proper marketing and reasonable expectations, it could be very well received. I'm a big advocate for Xenoblade X. It's my favorite open world game of all time. I can gush about this game, day in and day out. And arguably, I kind of like the ending, because the ending is a victim of its time, not necessarily of its writing style. If there was a follow-up that followed up on these themes and these characters, it would have been a banger ending. And you'd play one and be like, oh man, that was such a good transition to Xenoblade X 2. We just never got Xenoblade X 2. Is Fellowship a bad movie by itself? No, it's a great movie. But it's better, especially the ending, because of what comes afterwards. Because that story, that proverbial torch, is carried into the future and into a new story. A continued narrative with the characters that continue to grow and feel and change. It's part of a saga, it's not the saga itself. And that's the thing with Xenoblade X. Sure, without an X2, the ending doesn't hit as hard, but if there was, we would be looking back on Xenoblade X's ending as, look at how cool this ending was, and how much improved the narrative structure, and pacing, and cinematography, and characterization improved in the latter half of Xenoblade X. You go from that ending immediately to an X2 that continues to improve on that. Bang! But alas, it just never came. And that's the sad reality of Xenoblade X right now, is that it's not an ending that I would put any fault in because of how they wrote the ending. The only fault in Xenoblade X's ending, in my opinion, is the fact a follow-up never came. I want to learn more about Lao, why he's still around, what's his Black Knight business, what's the secret of Mira, is it similar to Ionios? Is it different? I want to learn more about that. This world is beautiful, it's dynamic, it's diverse, it's cool to look at, to explore, to play in. I want to learn more about Mira. The ending of X makes me want to learn more about it. It adds another sense of mystery on top of it, and adds a sense of individuality and uniqueness to the narrative that isn't just humans fight weird alien monsters for survival. Cool, it was good in X, kinda, but this is far more interesting. There may be more humans out there. Where can that story go? Do we find out more information about the destruction of Earth that we may have just not been privy to, but they may have as well? Or do we have information that could help them as well? There's so much they could do here. And X's ending would have transitioned perfectly into that role. The character of Elma was clearly a character, in my opinion, that is begging for follow-up. Her story wasn't done, not by any stretch of the imagination. And just in Xenoblade X, she's one of my favorite Xenoblade characters overall. Arguably top 5, if not top 3. She's an amazing character, but her story wasn't over. This is not like Xenoblade 1 or 2, where those characters go through a beginning, a middle, and an end and have complete narrative resolution, where you can put the game down and be like, you know what, I never need a follow-up to this because that was good. That is not the case with X. And that can work, but you need the follow-up. And I don't think it's necessarily fair to blame X for its ending, when reality is that the ending is fine. The problem is the external factors that make the ending of X worse in retrospect, because there's never been a follow-up to X. And had there been a sizable, interesting follow-up, I may be looking at Xenoblade X as my arguably second favorite or third favorite ending in all of Xenoblade. Because while X kind of struggled and stumbled here and there, narratively speaking, throughout most of X's storyline, it absolutely hit a home run at the end. It was firing on all cylinders. It was blaring sweet victory, and was showcasing what this story, what these characters, what this world are truly capable of doing. And I want more of that, you know? So I hope we do see Xenoblade X Definitive Edition at some point, because in the back of my mind, I'll always be thinking, hey, I think they're testing us, seeing if X is marketably viable, if there's enough interest in X as a whole to warrant a potential follow-up at some point. I would love to see that. And theories can exist, and I've made theories myself about how you can fit X into the story of Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3. I kind of prefer it if X was just its own separate entity, because I really like this world. And I don't want that narrative to be put to the side just to bring the characters of X into the fold for 1, 2, and 3. I would love to see the story of Mira expanded on, extrapolated on, developed, fleshed out. If you couldn't tell, I'm a massive fan of Xenoblade Chronicles X. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It is my favorite open world game of all time. And it's not just because of the gameplay. The more and more I think about Xenoblade X, the more and more I care about its narrative, its characters, and its music, and I want more of it. I really do. But I think when it comes to critique, it's important to be specific, and it's important to understand the root issues at play here, and what aren't, what are masquerading as an easy target to hit, when in actuality the real target that we should be aiming for, that we should be critiquing, comes elsewhere. And for me, the ending of X is not the problem, it's what came afterwards. And the fact that we have just not gotten anything X related. That makes X worse in comparison because it's Fellowship without the other two movies. But that doesn't mean Fellowship or Xenoblade X had a bad ending. It's just incomplete. And that, to me, is X's greatest sin. So I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all. And I say sin, right? And it's not even X's sin. It was just circumstance. Because sometimes that happens. But the circumstance that happened nonetheless. And until that fated day that we may eventually get Xenoblade X2, that circumstance is here to last. That condition, that perpetual but remains. But the ending of X itself, I don't think is the narrative issue. It's really cool in my opinion. I love it. I love Xenoblade X. And with that, I'll call it there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe. Have a great day. Go play some video games if you can. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload and stream in the future. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.